Yeah, actually, thank you. My teeth are yellow, my braces are yellow because I had curry the night before last, so I can't smile. Okay. Alright. And I'm nervous on top of that. Okay.
What is it? When it gets tough, talk about your daughter.
Thank you. And everyone's naked. Okay. Alright, that was two jokes. Okay. I actually only wrote what I wanted to say last night, so I do have to look at my notes. So I apologise if I'm not looking up and acknowledging everyone enough. I'm excited, thrilled, honoured and very proud, and most of all relieved to be here with you all today. Sorry. Oh gosh, okay. The journey to this day has been 3 years in the making. What one person will do to get a bit of respite. It's pretty amazing. I would like to share the story of the journey that has brought us to be here today. If you would just indulge me. It's partly my family story, but ultimately it's our red community story. I think I'm better off just looking here because people are crying and it's just ridiculous. Okay, our presence here today is a culmination of the passion, the drive, the determination, and also at times the heartbreak of not only myself, but also that of my husband and partner in life, James. Oh gosh. I would like to acknowledge James's enormous contribution to this cause. It was James's vision that catapulted us down this new road, and life that we knew nothing of before. Little did I realise then the amazing journey that we were about to embark on. We were once told that in our marriage, James is the root and I am the flower. He has all the great ideas and then I make them happen. A cab driver actually told us that. He was a Indian version of a clairvoyant or something. Anyway, I thought it was hilarious because it's actually true. He always has these great ideas and then I pick up the ball and run with it, and oftentimes I try my best to make it happen. I'd like to just read you an excerpt of an email that I wrote to RetNet to share my experience about what I call my mind shift on respite. I'm sure that many of you will be able to relate to this, and this is really where it all started. October 2010, I wrote, Lily is 7 and I have struggled with the guilt that comes with wanting, or rather needing, a break from her. But don't get me wrong, I adore my little girl, she's my world, I would die for her. But Lily's behaviours are challenging and have been since she was 2. The crying, screaming and whining can sometimes be relentless. It is extremely difficult to remain sane at times when you are having to listen to it for hours on end and there is nothing you can do to console her. Above all of this, I am a perfectionist, and so I believe that nobody can do anything better than me when it comes to my family. My husband calls me a control freak. A couple of months ago, we had one of 4 school term holidays, 2 weeks at home, Lily out of her routine at school every day. She was not happy chappy. In spite of our greatest efforts to make her happy, doing the things she loves to do on weekends, like going for walks and going for long drives, Lily spent most of the 2 weeks crying, screaming and whining. By the last day I was a nervous wreck. I was a complete basket case, to put it nicely, and so was James. You see, my perfectionism and my fear of what others thought have prevented me from allowing others to be involved in Lily's life. It has prevented me from taking Lily out in public too often, mostly because she doesn't like to go to places with lots of people around. Offers of help were swiftly rejected. Oh no, I would say we're fine, but thank you anyway. A friend offered to take Lily for a weekly walk and I declined because I didn't want her to have to experience a walk with Lily where she might scream the whole time because she chose the wrong direction to walk in. I made a call to a respite support service on the final day of the holidays. I couldn't contain my emotion, surprise, and I began to cry. Julie, the coordinator who answered the phone, comforted me and consoled me as best as she could, whilst I blubbered and cried and explained that I couldn't take it anymore. Screw perfectionism, I was broken. She She promised me she would help me, and she did more than she will ever know. We made an appointment for the next day to officially meet and complete some paperwork so they could make arrangements to provide some emergency funding for us to get some in-home respite, and I agreed. We had a coffee together and I explained to her my fears of not only having someone else care for my daughter, but knowing that they could never do it the way I did it or as well as me, but shamefully that I didn't want others to have to be subjected to Lily's behaviours. I felt terrible saying that, but it was honestly the truth. I saw Lily as someone that no one else but her family who loves her would want to spend time with her. In the most delicate motherly way, she said, "Trish, when you decline offers of help and opportunity for others to be involved in Lily's life, you are not only doing yourself a disservice by missing the opportunity to have a break, but you are denying Lily of having meaningful relationships with people other than yourself and your family. And you are denying the person offering the help an opportunity to have a relationship with Lily, and possibly a life-changing one for them." Wow. You could have blown me over with a feather. This was a profound moment for me. I never ever thought about respite in that way. She went on to explain that if Lily did not have Rett syndrome, she would have many more opportunities to independently have meaningful relationships and conversations and interactions with all kinds of people at the supermarket, the local fruit veggie shop, with her sporting friends, with her sporting friends, with her, where am I? With her neighbours, her friends, siblings, and so on. She went on to explain that she needs to have meaningful relationships with other people, and that's good for her. These are people that can become lifelong friends. If God forbid something happens to you, they will still be there. Someone who knows her, who loves her and cares about her, other than just her family. They can speak for her if you cannot, because they too know her. They know what she likes and what she dislikes. They will enrich her life and she will enrich theirs beyond measure. Lily can give the world as much as she takes. So that was a pretty profound mind shift for me, and I went from looking at respite as something that was really bad and that I was putting my daughter in a situation that wasn't desirable, to really understanding that it can be a pleasant and good experience for all of us. So that was where the journey began. A lot of things have changed since then, including Lily's demeanour, thank goodness. Mamre actually provided us with the tools and the funding that we needed at the time to manage our own respite in home while we prepared for a direct service from disability services. And that took 3 months. In 2010, in December 2010, we had our first overnight respite experience, and that was the catalyst to us deciding that we were going to build our own respite house. I don't know what we were thinking at the time, but anyway, there were things that were really wrong about that direct service, and I'll just touch very quickly on a couple of them. When we arrived, and we took 3 months to get prepared to actually have that service. When we arrived, there was a couple of very, very boisterous, big boys running around the house. That frightened me straight away, because our girls are very frail, and I was worried about how Lily was going to protect herself. And then I actually asked about who was going to be with them overnight, and I was advised that it would be a male. And at that point, all of my fears just came crashing down. But it took us 3 months to get to the point where we needed respite. And I had to walk away and leave my non-verbal, very frail daughter overnight with a man that I've never met before, and that I wasn't going to meet because he wasn't arriving till the evening. That just didn't make sense to me. Who would leave their typical verbal child with a complete male stranger overnight? And yet we were expected to accept that as this is the norm, and it's completely fine, and you should go away and have a break. well, of course, we didn't sleep. We drove away in the car, and we left Lily there, and we cried all the way home. And we knew that it just wasn't right, but we had to go through with it because, you know, we needed a break. So that was when James said, that's it, I'm building my own respite house. We're going to do it ourselves. So he went ahead and bought a parcel of land with a vision to somehow make it happen. Get some people together that we know in the developing world and build some townhouses and use some of the profit to build a house. So that was the vision that we had to do the house. The next step was, of course, to actually get the money to service it. So James just rang up the minister's office and said, I want a meeting. And they said, yes, okay, sure, come in. As you do. So that was a pretty incredible meeting. We didn't actually meet with the minister. We met with two very, I'm completely gone off track, but we actually then met with two of the, you know, people that hold the purse strings, high level, you know, executives from within the department. And at that meeting, I just did a presentation, a little slideshow about Rett syndrome and about Lily and why we felt that we needed our own special service for our girls because they're frail and they're fragile and we need respite, and many of the families that I knew had never accessed any respite, and there was a reason for it, and they agreed. And it was quite interesting that at the time that this had happened, well actually no, I'm jumping a bit ahead, but anyway, at that meeting they said, yeah, sure, this is a great idea, we'll give you $2 million. And James and I were kicking each other under the table. We couldn't believe it. Anyway, so they said, you know, we've got $2 million in that thing. Yeah, we'll give them that $2 million. This is perfect. And we just couldn't believe it. So we got in the lift. You can imagine when the doors closed. Joe, the lift must have been. We were high-fiving and hugging, and we were just, we couldn't believe that they wanted to actually support us and do this with us, and they were going to give us $2 million. Okay, so we moved on from there, and the department really was very, very dedicated. The one person that was in the room, there were two people in that room. One of them was a lady named Denise Pambert, who is still working within the department. She's been there a very long time. She's a really beautiful person, and she's actually, I call her our champion, because she's the one lady that actually made this happen. She took this an idea and just ran with it and fought for us, because it really was a fight. There were many times when we were at risk of this not ever coming to fruition. There are a lot of reasons why. A lot of people within the department didn't believe that Rett syndrome deserved to have their own funding. They should just fall within you know, the range of what was already available, and that we need to share that money, and that there were also, you know, the risk of the new government was coming in. That was a very scary time. So, however, they committed, and they understood the concept of the fact that we actually need to be involved in the respite service, the development of the model. It needs to be from a parent's perspective. Otherwise, parents aren't going to use it. And so with that, they actually asked me to develop the service model and write, to specify the things that were important to families as far as the service provision goes, and what would make it a viable thing for us to want to use. So I was with the department for 6 months, and at the time that this was all happening, Karen Nankervis, who's going to speak shortly, was also working closely with the department, and some of her research that she's going to talk about really reiterated what we were trying to achieve. And that was a really fortuitous time and relationship, because it just embedded the initiative into the minds of all of the people that were making decisions. They really started to get it and understand that this is important. And Karen's going to talk a bit about that later. What I did discover though, that respite, and this also relates back to Karen's research, that respite isn't a cure or band-aid. As part of when I started, I was visiting a lot of other respite services, and I had only ever been to the one where Lily had stayed, and it was really sad actually, because what I found was there were a few places that were really fantastic and doing great things. But there wasn't a lot of them, and it was quite sad to see families that were dropping off their children and they were sitting there really doing absolutely nothing, not really being cared for in a way that was probably ideal, and families were probably not getting the right, I don't know how to put it, value out of the respite that they should have been getting. Anyway, we realised then there had to be a holistic approach to respite. It had to go hand in hand with planning and with a lot of other things that were really important, not just respite. We had to look after the families, and there was a lot of intricate details that got woven into the respite initiative, but most importantly, some of the things that were really important to our families were being able to have their own support workers with their daughter when they did access respite, so they're already familiar to your child. So when you leave, you know that your child's with somebody that you trust and that understands her. The family involvement aspect was really probably the biggest thing. I wanted to reiterate to the department what a great community we have and how strong we are as a community, and that we do rally around each other when we need to, and we are special, and that we wanted to make Lily Groves Place a central sort of community house focus, not just a respite house, but actually a focus for the community, an area, a place for everyone to come to, and for everybody to call it their own. And I really wanted the department to understand that we want to take ownership of this initiative. We want to be in control of that, and what that actually means is that we all contribute in some way or another, rather than sitting back and making use of the service. We somehow become involved in it, and this will really embed the service in the way that the initiative works in the minds of the people that are going to fund it in the future, the department funding it in the future. And I think for us, really taking control of that community aspect is important. So I'd like to just ask quickly, who is willing to take ownership of this initiative and support it in whatever way they can? That's good, tentatively. It doesn't mean you have to physically do something. If your family member can be involved somehow. I think we just need to embrace it. If we want it to be what the vision was, and that we have some control, and that we are a family together making this happen, we all have to be involved somehow, or the majority of us need to be able to be involved. If we leave it to the department to do it the way they've have done it in the past, we'll be back to where we started from. Nobody's going to be accessing services, and people aren't going to be happy. Anyway, I've been rambling on too long. I should wrap it up. What I just wanted to say was that Lily Groves Place, the actual house, will be built hopefully by the end of June, July. It's been a bit of a long-winded process because we couldn't start construction of the house until we had the title after the townhouses were completed, and we've got the title now, so that will be finished commencing next month, April, and we're in March now, and we're hoping that the house will only take about 12 weeks to build, and I know that at the end of it, we're going to have a wonderful place of community for us, and for those families that do wish to use the house-based respite, I hope that it's going to be a wonderful place for everyone to come together and do that in an appropriate and safe and family sort of orientated way. And finally, I'd just like to acknowledge Equity Works who won the tender from the government to take on the service. I'm just really, I couldn't be more pleased with the way that they are so dedicated to really giving families ownership and control, and they're really, really dedicated to the model, and we're just really, really lucky to have such an amazing service provider to be putting this service out for us. So I'd like to acknowledge Equity Works. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm sorry for blubbering.